But it's too late to tell him that now, and that's my fault. I've wasted too much time in neglecting to tell him all the things I ever wanted to say. Now I stand here holding the fairy ocarina, the very one I gave him as a token of our friendship, just before he left the forest on his quest. Those two, close to my saddened heart.
I love how you've just completely unleashed all of your southernness.
She unleashed all of her broness for the Goron. It was amazing.
Yes, my ultimate wordness.
The whole memory is causing me to cry mentally, wringing my mind of all doubts and fears that have been threatening to crash down on me.
I honestly thought that you were just speaking. Yeah. I didn't think you were reading. I thought you were saying that you were traumatized and wanted to stop.
Oh my.
I wish I did. Like the ones that came in a rush at my first glimpse of Link's body. The one that came when I finally realized he was gone.
Oh, that. Okay.
But there is nothing I can do about it now.
Oh no, if you think they haven't talked about his naked body yet, you were wrong.
Oh, I never for a moment thought that. All I can do now is hold on to his precious memory and try to remember all the good times Link and I shared. He was a true friend, one that will never be forgotten. Where's my paycheck?
I truly believe that one day, extraneous semicolon, I will be dancing among the stars with him.
Dancing with the Stars, Hyrule Edition.
Have a good night. Remember to tip your waiter.
Remember to ask, forward or backwards. It's only polite. Princess Zelda, the seventh sage. Tears of a Rose. We don't know actually what the kind of sage she is. We're just going to say she's the seventh one.
Tears of a Rose. That is whole.
The rose on the gray.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Light. Dark. These two essences of eternal life has been feuding for total domination since the beginning of time. Each and every one of us either follows the path of light or the path of darkness. To become astray, one can easily do, succumbing to the influences of temptations or false hopes. Can someone be diverted down the irreversible path of darkness?
My brain just crashed into a wall with that line.
So wordy. By trying to be, eloquent and poetic, and it's just a jumble of words.
Didn't work.
Yeah, it's absolutely not elegant or poetic.
Oh, I didn't say elegant. I said eloquent. Oh, but it's not that either. I have always been the one to walk in the light. Always been the one to fight the encroaching so that good, but I never one of our own could easily choose such a despairing path. With these results, I have finally come to believe this is what happened to me.
Oh, you think so? Now? Great. Glad you came to this conclusion after the last moment it mattered.
I'm getting flashbacks to Tim Curry and Clue.
It could have happened that way, but this could have been the way it ended.
Yeah, exactly.
The Zoras were merely a red herring.
Oh my goodness. No, they're a blue herring, my dude.
You only have one shot left. You have no shots left. No, I have one shot left. No, you have 0 shots left.
1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1.
Plus 1.
I kind of want to watch Clue now. It would be much better over time.
It's such a better story than this.
I hated Jenna. I just flames.
That's what that's from. I quote that from time to time, but I cannot remember what show that was from.
It's Madeline Kahn in Clue.
Wait, was that Madeline Kahn or Eileen? No, that was Madeline Kahn.
It was Madeline Kahn as Mrs. White.
Yeah, she was Mrs. White. She was brilliant.
Oh my goodness.
And you can see Martin Mull behind her, trying desperately not to laugh.
Yeah.
So funny.
When I first met him as a young princess in the palace garden, I saw that small glimmer of hope I'd seen so many times dreams. It was then that I'd come to the realization that all my prayers had been answered. The hero, the child of destiny, had finally come to take his place as the hero of time.
And, although it might seem like she has omitted a quote mark at the end of this is the only time she has ever done this properly by not putting a quote mark, because people are still speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to say that your version of Princess Zelda sounds like she has a very particular set of skills.
Yes, she does, and she's also played by Christopher Walken.
Oh, great.
Nice. So, class, we fought along we fought along and hard together.
What?
We fought long and hard together. There, I said words correctly. I was trying to go for a Junko and a Shima, but I failed.
We fought the long and hard together, but enough about our bedroom.
Side by side as we quested to gather the three spiritual stones. Then Ganondorf came. Impa and I fled to the castle.
God damn it, I was trying not to laugh.
In fear for our lives.
I'm too fresh to the reading, though. It's just...
And as we rode by, I saw Link standing there with eyes wide open. But I took
At least it wasn't eyes wide shut.
But I took my chances and then thrusted the sacred ocarina at him. But
Don't get hypnotized by the thrusting. Don't watch the thrusting, darling.
But before we rode away, never really knowing that leaving the key with Link would give Ganondorf the way into the sacred realm through the gatekeeper.
There is no day now, Lisa.
Yes.
When Link entered the Temple of Time and pulled the sacred Master Sword from the pedestal
read
of
that
time.
again.
Okay. Oh, gosh. When Link entered the Temple of Time and pulled the scared Master Sword of pedestal of time.
That poor sword, it was afraid of this story. It knew what was going to come.
Yeah, I don't blame it. I don't blame it at all.
His entire being was trapped inside the sacred well, and thus started the 7 years of darkness.
This seems like an intentional design flaw for a weapon of light.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. In the actual story itself, this was a problem with the story, and it's probably not something you should bring up in a story that you're trying to be clever in.
Right? Oh no, I begun to believe all hope was lost. Until that day, many years later, all my hopes were rekindled when the boy I met so long ago returned to Hyrule as a full-grown...
Which you would have
wielding the sacred legendary
known.
Master Sword. Man, you could do with some punctuation.
Which you knew was going to happen. Did she not?
If she didn't, she's an idiot. But then...
Well, but that is that's a distinct possibility right there. Dressed in Sheikah's garb, I followed the newly derived hero of time, as he journeyed to each of the 5 temples and freed each of the trapped sages that were held captive within them.
When Link finally came close to completing his destiny, his life must have took a drastic turn for the worse, you know what I mean. In all my days as the Princess of Hyrule, never had I thought I'd see the day when Hyrule's chosen would finally succumb to the evils of the darkness and falter from the light.
Now I stand here over a grave on top of a mountain, tee-hee. My face stained with welling tears as I look over the place where the hero that once walked in the light now lies buried. Yay!
He's dead.
Because he died!
Yay! Let's talk about dead people.
Ever since the dark day when we found him lying in the Temple of Time,
love how they keep bringing that up. Every 5 minutes they bring up how they found him lying dead in the Temple of Time.
Pierced through the heart by the very sword he wielded.
Somehow.
Yeah. That would be an awkward thing to pull off.
Yeah, it would.
I have come to the conclusion that Link was finally conquered by the very evils he fought so hard to defeat.
You know what I really think is defeating the Kingdom of Hyrule? Redundancy.
Yeah, that'll do it.
As time slowly trickles by, I cannot help but question what caused him to be led astray by the very darkness he so deeply despised. Can I ask what may seem like a stupid question? Isn't she basically saying the same thing over and over and over again?
Mm-hmm. She's just rephrasing herself.
Okay, just
Not
making
even
sure.
rephrasing herself. But she also used the wrong lead there.
I mean,
Lead.
well, yes, that's true. He was lead astray.
But yeah, she's basically just rephrasing this, or barely rephrasing this.
Right.
She's using the same damn words because she's apparently so impressed with herself from them.
Anyway, he was led astray by the very darkness he so deeply despised. Maybe it was the brimming fact that he
That's
thought...
how you use that word.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could hear that in my voice, I hope. That he thought the light was no longer fulfilling a satisfactory life for him. You don't know how to words.
This sounds like something you'd read on something you'd get in a cheap Chinese knockoffs package.
Right?
The light is fulfilling a satisfactory life for you.
Your lucky numbers are 13, 24, 18, and 12.
In bed.
Pea brush.
Or maybe he thought that the life he was leading was slowly pulling him down a path of misery.
What am I?
Well, it's definitely
what am I-
doing that for us.
What is Pea Brush? Why am I not remembering Pea Brush?
That was during the god awful pagan monastery scene,
Oh, that's right. That's right.
and every so often it would say embed paintbrush. And like
Yes.
I explained at the time, I'm pretty sure in the original posting of the story, that was where you actually saw, thank goodness we didn't have to see it, illustrations of what was going on.
Thank God we didn't see illustration.
But that's what embed paintbrush is. It's talking about it's talking about paintbrush files. Paintbrush is what they called, Microsoft Paint way
that
back in the
makes
day.
sense. We just thought it was something really bizarre, kinky.
Well,
But,
I mean, it was, but just not in the way you were thinking.
Yeah, honestly, to those who were not there, it would probably have been more appealing while we were reading that story to imagine someone pulling off sounding with brush, like a paintbrush or something. Like that would have been better than the story. Let me just say.
I think I'll do without. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm with Cassie on that one.
Still be better than my inner life.
I mean, no. If so, then only just. These are the nagging questions that have been haunting me ever since the day we finally came to the realization that Link was truly gone. Which
I mean, if you listen to
we said this like 25 times now.
Exactly. Like, if we've been listening to their story, they came to the realization that Link was gone about 50 times now, and they came to that realization at least a week ago.
Oh man, I'm starting to see why it's taken you so long to read such a short story.
Well, see, this is much like MIL originally. Like, I knew it was going to take a while to read, but I figure, with just getting to it as we could, we'd probably finish it in like a month. I was very wrong. And so then I pulled up the stories and I went, well, they're not that long, so they probably won't, they'll take one day to read. But then again, I remembered it was Jenna, and I'm like, nah, you'll be fine. And then here we are, one story in, and it's already been 3 hours.
Yeah, well, it's like, it was like, it reminds me of, the time a long time ago when you're like, oh, I don't think it's going to take this long. And I'm like, no, it's going to take a while. And then later on, in one of the bloopers that I saw later on down the line, you were like, no, Hawk was right. And that thing was, what really got to me though was, that blooper was entitled, Haka's always right, and I'm like, I can guarantee you that's not true.
Every time you've said that, though, it's always been fact. It's always been fact.
But, I mean, the odds of that were already good to begin with. So.
Now,
anyway.
Now it's times like this where I feel truly alone. I feel cheated. Feel wronged. I feel as if Link never trusted any of us enough for him to speak of us and his pain and misery. Because God forbid we ask a simple question to anybody that we apparently know as well as we are supposed to have known him. And it is in that knowledge we have lost one of the greatest men to have ever lived.
But if you didn't know him, then how do you know he was a great person?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we know he was
that well, then why couldn't you ask a simple question like, are you okay?
Buster Wolf? Sorry.
As I stand here, looking down over his dank grave, you keep using the word dank. It doesn't mean what I think you think it means. And when you keep using it like this, it just makes it seem like we've got our pot stash buried instead of Link, which is probably what we do since he's off fucking Ganondorf somewhere.
Well, see, every time they use the word dank,
that word.
A dark, moist place that smells moldy.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just like, you don't want to really use that to describe a grave. Maybe the word should be lonely.
Or dark?
Yeah.
Even just dark could work. Because he buried him under a fucking mountain, apparently.
I mean, a grave probably is dank, but that's just the most unpleasant descriptor you could probably use. I mean,
yeah,
maybe other than moldering.
Yeah. Yeah, like, why not say, like, yes, he's rotting down there under our feet in a shithole under this mountain. Yeah, the hole was only there because the Gorons needed somewhere to drop turds off.
Wow.
Let me just mention this now, since obviously we're talking about how dank it is. Let's remember him well. The once mighty blade of justice with its light gone and now lying on top of his tombstone, where anybody could just take it.
Right?
We're not going to put it back in the forest or anything. That might actually...
Yeah, we're not going to put it back in the pedestal that actually protects it.
Yeah. Why would we ever do that? That might actually take any effort from any of us. I cannot help but cry. Even as stern as I might have been, even though that's not the Zelda that's in Ocarina of Time.
Right.
I truly do miss him.
He was someone I had come to call a friend, and then I shat all over him. And even as much as it pains me to say this, which it really doesn't, because I'm so joyful that this guy has died, I have actually had feelings for him, and reluctantly never told him how I felt. Because, every girl here just wants to ride him hard.
Mm-hmm.
What? Not at the funeral, assholes!
Do that too, honestly.
Not at the funeral. Ever since the day I first started following him disguised as Sheik, it was really stalking because I needed to be the first person to sleep with him. I slowly started to realize that the feelings I had for him as a friend soon turned into something more, like stalking. The feelings slowly turned into ones of lust and yearning to have him as my own.
That got so much more crass than I thought it was going to, even under the circumstances.
Yeah, I just want to remind us all of this thing. It is a little comic, and the fact that she mentioned about the sheep thing and the fact that it's very stalkery just reminds me of this comic where Link is so lonely. And he goes to Sheik and he's telling him that, like, I thought you were just really creepy at first, but, and I thought maybe you were thinking of me as more than a friend. But I'm just so lonely. I'm okay with that because I'm just so lonely. And Zelda, just pops off and she's like, what have I done?
Anyway, now that she, at the funeral, she's talking about how much she wants to jump his bones.
All the girls have said this.
Yeah. Yeah, Rita talks about his naked body.
Of course.
At length.
I don't want to hear about his length.
I would be okay with it, but only if he's, actually alive and
Well,
just running
yeah,
away
I
with
mean-
cannons.
I mean, if you're into that, keep it to yourself, please. I mean, I'll probably read it, but
I won't.
I mean, I've read a lot of things.
I mean, that's great and all. I don't want to.
No,
I'd read
that's
the
cool.
cannibal,
I
but
understand.
Maybe not the necrophilia. Maybe.
I can't afford to get canceled on social media, Link.
But it's too late for that now. Too damn late to tell him about how I felt about him. Maybe if I hadn't been so negligent in telling him of the way I felt, he might have chosen against the crazy notion of suicide. I feel that this entire situation is all my fault.
Good.
Blame myself for allowing Link to falter to the darkness, all because he felt that there was no one truly loved him in ways he needed.
How do you know this?
I mean, you just make him sound like he was pent up. This is all really crass.
Plus, everybody up to this point. I mean, this is actually the most enlightened person speaking, somehow. But all this before this has been, let's make it all about us. Let's also call him a fucking piece of shit, because apparently we're not here to remember him. with
Yeah,
any
the only
dignity.
reason he committed suicide in the view of all the girls is that he just needed to get laid.
Right?
That's not why people
Yeah.
commit suicide.
Boy, I would be long gone. Anyway, now I've lost some. Oh, golly, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because she says the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Now I've lost someone very special to me because of my own damn selfishness and demanding duties. I just wish now there was something I could do to change the past, but I cannot, even though I have a magical time-altering artifact.
Funny you should mention that. We all mentioned that too.
Okay, just checking.
She keeps mentioning the whole thing, like if
We
only
can't
there
go
was
back in
some
time and
way.
change anything. But we can.
If only there was some way we could go back in time.
Right. Yeah, it's not like that was a key part of Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, it is the title also.
Anyway.
So it bears saying. This all bears saying.
It does, but we're almost out of time.
Okay. All I can do is accept the fact that the once gentle, vibrant, compassionate young man I came to love now is now but all but a distant memory. But the one thing I swear by my very life for as long as I shall live and misuse semicolons, his memory will always live on in our hearts, and he will always have a very special place in mind, and for as long as I will remain standing, Link, the hero of time, will not be forgotten, and ain't I a woman?
Okay. The Temple of Time sat shrouded in darkness, rain pummeling the roof of the dreariness of the days. Saddened events lay heavily on the 7 people who have gathered outside to see the horrific sight that lies before them. One could not believe that their eyes were telling them. There, on the altar of the pedestal of time, lies the fallen warrior, Link, the hero of time, pierced through, not the wrong one, yes, the wrong one, the chest by his own sword, the Master Sword.
All 7 sages just stand there, petrified, unable to move, the sight just so drastically frightening to believe, pools of dried blood staining the floor. From the marred, tainted tunic of the once vibrant, brilliant young man, everyone came to know and love, but apparently couldn't have a conversation with, and it seems that from the way he died, it was by his own hand.
But one can question why he did it. Wasn't he happy? Well, apparently not, jackass. He had a beautiful wife, and a lovely life had seemed blissful, or so it seemed. Maybe all of this was over the drastic loss of his son, Link II. Did this actually happen during the story?
No.
Okay, so it is just really this is bad. Ever since the day his son was captured by Ganon, tortured, then killed father, Link was never really the same.
This never happened in the story.
Well, we didn't get that far in the story, honestly.
I think the second was like 3 at most at the end of the story, wasn't he? He wasn't that old.
He was, well, the thing is, it was hard to tell how old he was because he was supposedly doing mathematics at like 3 months old. I don't know if you remember that. We all got really upset. But, yeah, Link Jr. was really weak by the time My Inner Life stopped. It didn't end, it just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly, he started getting depressed. Slowly, huh? After your son dies? Alright. And he seemed to grow distant from everyone. Soon he and his wife were always fighting. They were always bickering over the smallest things, and it seemed that their love for each other slowly started dying, causing their marriage to start splitting in.
Link just seemed to grow more distant as times flew by. His reasoning on why he was so helpless on saving his son just caused him to fall into a deep depression. With the pain of the loss of his son and his slowly dying marriage, he finally came to the conclusion that the only way to release his pain was to end his own life.
How do you know this? Is this just omniscient narrator explaining all this to us?
Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it have been better to set this up before?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. This seems really out of order.
Like, literally any setup whatsoever?
Now the once lively, vibrant young man who became a warrior of justice is now just a frozen, motionless, hapless body. A pale shadow of his former self. And now what is to become of him?
Well, they're gonna toss him in a hole, and then they're gonna say mean things about him.
Apparently. I mean, obviously. Haven't you been here?
Well, technically, no, he hasn't.
I still think he's in the audience somewhere.
One can hope.
One can hope.
I think that he ran away with Ganondorf, to be honest.
It makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. The sages are too petrified at the horrific sight to even move, frozen in time, struggling to work up the courage and strength to move him, when suddenly a figure dressed in a light silk pink dress rushes through the crowding sages, knocking them over before stopping dead, paralyzed in the sight that befalls her. Of course you fucking show up in this
I love how she shows up at the end to make it all about her. As if everybody else making it about them isn't bad enough. She has to yet again show up and make it about her. Mm-hmm.
Jenna, Link's wife, walks forward, frightened and horrified, even though I thought they'd got a divorce or whatever. And horrified at the sight that lays just ahead. Also, how do you divorce? You can't. You had a bondage ceremony that tied your souls together.
Right. Well, and it never said they got divorced. It just said that their marriage was ours.
I swore it said they were divorced. I'm sorry. Where was I? I was screaming. Okay, I found it. At the sight that lays just ahead of her, Link, her husband, lying dead on the temple altar.
Alright, it's time for your Oscar moment, Silent Darling.
Dashing forward, she crashes to the floor next to him, crying hysterically as she desperately shakes him, screaming for him to wake up. Oh my goodness, no! Link, wake up! Link, please get up! Oh my goodness! No, you cannot be dead! You just cannot be! The woman screams as she continues to shake his lifeless body.
Death with dignity, ladies and gentlemen.
Her once pink dress now tainted and marred with his drying blood. Tears stream down her face as her tainted hands. How many times can you say tainted?
That's a really apt description, though. It's not what you meant, but hey.
Hands run swiftly up the once vibrant sword, now impaled through his chest.
He threw it, apparently. Well, that takes some doing to throw it on yourself, impale yourself to death on top of an altar by throwing a blade. That's very skillful.
Indeed.
Swiftly pulling it out and throwing it aside.
Do you realize how hard it would be to pull a sword out of someone's chest?
That's what I was going to say.
Like, you're just one-handed out? That sword is not something you just one-handedly fling out after it's been plunged into someone.
Right.
Warriors have to actually be trained to do that.
Excalibur here.
And yeah, it just and this reminds me of a story I didn't really particularly like, but I was forced to read it when I was in school, called "Where the Red Fern Grows." Oh God! Right. And this is what that reminds me of. But at least in that story, it goes out over how hard it is to take a blade out of a corpse. So yeah, good luck, really. As the women tries in vain to awaken her dead husband, the sages desperately try to call her back, knowing that she's confused and in too much shock to grasp the reality that the man she loves is now gone. Jenna just ignores their pleas and continues her desperate attempt to awaken him as she cradles his still body in her blood-stained arms.
But it soon becomes apparent to her that he's not going to wake up, so she slowly lowers her hand into the pouch that lies at her waist and pulls out a small vial, which should be spelled V-I-A-L instead of V-I-L-E, because V-I-L-E is what this story is.
Right.
Popping the cork, Jenna slowly lifts it to her lips, intent on joining her husband as she sings a final song.
So let me just ask, does she just carry a vial of deadly poison around with her at all times?
I was gonna ask, well, looks like this day is not going well. Good thing I've got the suicide vial in my pocket.
It's almost exactly the same thing as I went upstairs and slit my wrists.
It's just like, oh, well, I've just got this cyanide tablet. Like, it would be like asking your grandmother, do you have a cyanide tablet in your purse? Yeah, I've got one. Do you need one? I'll just split it up for you, darling.
It's next to the Tic Tacs.
Yeah.
Blink had that in his pocket. Why didn't he use that?
Yeah, I've got some Velaments in here. Don't get them confused with the sauce.
Oh man, I miss Velaments.
I do too. They were really good. But like, it's amazing that Jenna can find a way to make someone else's traumatic suicide about her.
Right.
But also, it's even worse of the fact that she comes in, sings a fucking song after she's just like drink the poison and shut up and die.
It's like all the worst parts of My Inner Life, Me Against the World, and Blood Raining Night all in one.
It's amazing how completely insensitive and inept this is.
Uh-huh.
But it's made somewhat more amusing by something that apparently Jenna did not realize, which is the fact that if this actually happened, then basically they just threw her dead body out to the dogs or something, because she sure as shit wasn't at this.
That's what I was going to say when I had the chance. I'm like, well, if she's dead too because of this, then why weren't they talking about her as well?
I guess they just tossed her on the fire and were like, well, praise Jesus, she's gone.
Yeah,
but
right?
Actually, they wouldn't praise Jesus, obviously, but
I mean, they might in that situation.
Forgive my man, this story really has.
Well, I mean, I think it's only fair, honestly. But yeah, it's just she's so intent on stealing the limelight for herself that she's willing to die to get it.
Maybe what Doctologist has said is right. His reading of the story is that they all blame themselves for Link's death by letting him marry her. Makes sense.
And of course, Pink Rose. And of course, Pink Rose. So she just chugged this bottle of poison while the sages were watching? Did they try to stop? No! If you knew anything about Jenna, no. You would let her die. It will save us a lot of time and trouble.
Yeah, we really should have found a way to travel in time with, say, an ocarina or some other woodwind.
Right.
So that we could get it to happen earlier.
And then we'll just use a fairy on Link and everything will be okay.
Right, which is what we should have done in the beginning.
So any final thoughts?
My final thought is, this is bad and it should feel bad.
Who's she?
My final thought is requiescat in pace. Jenna.
I think that's a little kind for this story.
Discussion in fairness.
There we go.
Norm, final thoughts?
It's confusing. It's
It very much is, yes.
there's repetitiveness. There's convolution. I can't even follow who's saying what or who did what, and I just basically ended up reading whatever lines that was in front of me.
Yeah,
That's where it distilled. That's where it distilled down to.
Yeah, that's pretty much for the best. Because, I mean, it all ended up being the same thing anyway. I like the concept, and I like how people are going through a range of emotions. Like, they're not all just sad. Like, some have regret, some have anger, some are just like, well, I hope he finds peace, but I'm not really sure what to feel or think. But it could be done so much better.
Yeah, and personally, I don't even think the concept of the story is good. It's really ham-fisted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's something that really should be taken seriously and given the respect that it deserves.
Right.